Talk about that now with Kellyanne Conway, Mr. Trump's new campaign manager. And let's pick up where John just left off right there. You know, no tweets from Reince Priebus, the head of the GOP, no tweets from the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, or Mitch McConnell. Are you disappointed that GOP leaders are not stepping up to defend Mr. Trump here?
Well, Reince Priebus was with Mr. Trump last night in Aspen together at a fundraiser, and they'll be in Las Vegas today.
Nothing public, though.
Well, I think they're just really busy behind the scenes. We had the RNC in yesterday, so we feel really good about the relationship between the presidential campaign and the Republican National Committee. But, you know, George, this entire conversation had to be had. Republican presidential nominees usually aren't bold enough to go into communities of color and take the case right to them and compete for all ears and compete for all votes. They've been afraid to do that. So Mr. Trump deserves credit for at least taking the case directly to the people.
He's been talking about the black community, but doing it in white communities.
Well, you hope they're listening. But I sat in a round table with him just yesterday where we had African-American leaders from many different countries of origin and many different states. And it was a very productive conversation where they are telling him what concerns them within their communities, and he is listening.
We heard Mr. Trump last night say that he thinks Hillary Clinton is a bigot. Do you think she's a bigot?
I think her policies have left many people behind. And if we're going to look at the 70% of Americans who say that this country is headed in the wrong direction and they want change, then we can't possibly abide policies by really a political party and Hillary Clinton leading it.
But is Mr. Trump right to call her a bigot?
Well, is she right to call him a bigot? Have you seen what this man is called on a daily basis? He's called a bigot, a racist, a sexist. Why is this a one-way conversation? Why is her team and her apologists almost everywhere allowed to just hurl personal insults and get away with not having a press conference in 265 days, no press conference, no press outrage, George? And more to the point, why in the world is she giving speeches with two months to go about him and about a website and not about healthcare and the economy and education and ISIS, all the things Americans tell people in the ABC polls they care about?
I think she brings up the website because it was run by the CEO of your campaign right now, Mr. Bannon. And we saw those reports yesterday in both Politico and the New York Post saying that he had been charged with domestic violence back in 1996 and actually, according to the court records, told his wife not to appear to file the charges. Was Mr. Trump aware of this? Is he okay with it?
I don't know what he was aware of with respect to a 20-year-old claim where the charges were dropped. So that's all I know about it is what I read. Let's
talk about immigration then, because there has been a lot of questions about Mr. Trump's policies the last couple of days. All through the primaries, he was very, very clear. All the undocumented immigrants in this country would have to leave the country. Is that still his position?
Yes. I think you've heard him over the course of a week explain his position as being what it's always been, which is absolutely no amnesty. He's going to build the wall, which has been the centerpiece of his campaign from the beginning. He wants to protect the American worker, which is a way of talking about immigration that very few people do. Usually people talk about securing the border and they leave it at that. That's really the floor and not the ceiling. He wants to make sure that American workers who are looking for jobs, who feel like they're competing with other folks, have that opportunity. He also has made very clear that those who have committed a crime will be returned immediately. And enforcing the law, unfortunately, in Washington, Georgia, is such a novel concept. The estimates are that if you enforce the law, so much of this takes care of itself. And as he said to a different anchor on a different network last night, we don't know how many are out there.
But he said a couple of different things over the last couple of days. On Sean Hannity's show, he suggested that the undocumented could stay here legally. Then he talked on Anderson Cooper's show about leaving the country and then coming back. If they stay, will there be a path to legalization, or must they leave the country?
He has said no path to legalization, no path to citizenship, and no amnesty. You can return home, and then if you'd like to go stand in line, like everybody else is, the things that we learn in kindergarten, stand in line, wait your turn, go through the normal courses, then that would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
So how will you get them out of the country?
That's to be determined in terms that he's got to talk to law enforcement agencies. This has never been tried on such a scale. And in fact, it is President Obama who has deported, by some estimates, 2 million plus people. So we know it's possible. It's just how are we dealing with the fact that, A, we do have illegal immigrants living among us, and as he has said all week long, George, he wants to find a fair, humane way that doesn't cause people harm.
But just to be clear, final point, all the undocumented immigrants in this country will have to go.
He has said that first you throw the bad ones out, the ones who have committed a crime. They leave. We don't know what that number is. Some people estimate about 1 million, but I don't think anybody clearly knows. Then you find a humane, fair way to deal with those who are still here. He said last night that they would have to return to their home countries, and then if they would like to come back the way they should have in the first place, they're welcome to do so. We're the most generous country to immigrants in the world, and that won't change under Donald Trump.
Kellyanne Conway, thanks for coming in this morning.
You did hear something extraordinary from Donald Trump today. He said that if he's elected president, he will ask the Justice Department to name a special prosecutor to go after Hillary Clinton. And then he went one step further and said he would arrest her and lock her up. He would put her in jail. In all of the years, I don't remember a time in American history when one candidate has said of the other candidate, if he wins, the other candidate's going to jail.
Well, Donald Trump is channeling the frustration of a lot of Americans he hears from. Well, so many Americans say, I can't believe that people have been, their lives have been ruined, their livelihood gone, they face jail time for doing far less than Hillary Clinton did here, and yet she goes completely exonerated for deleting 33,000 emails, not turning over another 17,000, that's 50,000 right there, setting up the private server to begin with, saying that there's no classified information. FBI Director Comey said that's not true. I only had one device, she had many. They took a hammer to them, and the story goes on, and it's an active investigation. In other words, just less than 2 weeks ago, 5 members.
The enormity of that statement.
I understand
he's going to lock up his opponent if he wins.
I understand. Well, no. What he said is he wants to appoint a special prosecutor because he feels, and he channels really public will here. He hears all the time. If we don't hear about the disasters of Obamacare and her failure with the Russian reset and in Benghazi, we're always hearing about the emails. And he told America tonight what America has told him. The frustration that there's a different set of rules for this woman, as goes her emails, and she imperiled national security.
I know you got to run. I'm going to put up on the screen one more time the results of our poll. You're a pollster. You're a professional pollster. You'll see the results. These are people who actually watched the debate, and millions of Americans watched. Who won the debate? 57% said Hillary Clinton won the debate. 34% said Donald Trump won the debate. That's the results of our CNN RSC poll. Kellyanne, thanks very much for joining.
I watched a different debate, but thank you. She just wants to talk about the issues. She wants to have a debate about the issues. Really? Is that what their ads are about? Is that what the filth is they peddle every day about my candidate Donald Trump is about? They want to talk about the issues.
But let's just be clear.
The
reason this has been making headlines is because Donald Trump was discussing and bragging about sexual assault 11 years ago on a bus. I mean, it's not Hillary Clinton who put those words in his mouth.
Anderson, first of all, in case anybody's wondering, because they'll somehow read my mind after this broadcast, I have said my opinion on that, as expressed privately and publicly, is a combination of Donald Trump's, Melania Trump's, and Mike Pence's statements from the weekend. I find those comments to be disgusting and reprehensible, and I'm really glad that he apologized. And I think when somebody seeks mercy and forgiveness and means it, and I was with him the entire time, including when he learned of this, then people ought to think about that. They ought to think about when somebody asks you for forgiveness and is contrite and for mercy,
years later,
are you willing to give
say
it?
On the radio that it's okay to call his daughter, you know, a nice piece of, you know what? I mean,
yeah, I see that all over CNN. I don't know if you're trying to drive a wedge between those two, but good luck, because they're incredibly close. They have a beautiful relationship.
No,
but
I'm just saying, why would a father say that about his own daughter? I don't understand.
Anderson, I guess the question I have is, why can't CNN cover Obamacare and ISIS and radical Islamic terrorism? And why can't you cover the fact that no, you don't. No, respectfully, you don't. 94 million people out of the workforce.
You guys should know we do, because you guys watch CNN all day long.
You don't want to cover it now. You want to talk over. You don't even want to cover it now. You don't want to hear that there are over 16 million women in poverty on President Obama's watch. And Hillary Clinton, who's been fighting for women and children for 30 years, where is the deliverable? Where is the product?
You clearly don't want to address what your candidate said about his own daughter, or allowed others to say about his own daughter in front of him, which I think a lot of people think is kind of odd.
I've addressed it many times. I've addressed it many times. I've addressed what he said this weekend many times.
I haven't heard you address the thing on Howard Stern about a nice piece of, you know.
You want me to address something he said on Howard Stern 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but you don't want to talk about the fact that Hillary Clinton defended a rapist successfully, and I want everybody to remember the name Kathy Shelton. She deserves a hearing. I know CNN did not want to put her on CNN the other night when she was in the debate hall. I thought it was incredibly courageous and brave of her to be there.
Right. I should just point out, we did an entire piece on that case just last night.
Keep running
going
it.
all
it's
the
great.
Details. All right. Kellyanne, Conway, I always do appreciate you being on. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to listen in for any news from the Trump rally tonight and get the panel's take on all of this right after a quick break.
All right, joining us now, we're in the spin room, is Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. One thing, Frank Luntz had a big win for Trump tonight.
Yes, in his dials. Absolutely, and I think most of America will agree with that if they're being honest, if they actually watch the debate and not the post-spin. You saw a very resolute Donald Trump tonight, focus showing why he is ready to be commander-in-chief and president on day one, Sean. This is a guy who took the case to Hillary Clinton, as so many people wanted him to, on Syria, on the emails, on Benghazi, on frankly,
it was funny when he said acid wash.
Acid wash the email.
That was pretty funny.
Bleach pit, acid wash, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Look, he hears people all the time out in the stump when he's traveling around this country. They're so frustrated that yet again a different law, a different set of standards applied to Hillary Clinton over her emails than does apply to other people who break the law.
He also said, look, if I'm president, you're not going to get a pass. You will be prosecuted. There were so many good lines by him. I think the difference, from my perspective, this debate and the last debate, I don't know if he was holding back. I don't know if it was by design. But she had gone after him hard. Tim Kaine regurgitated the talking points. And finally he said, okay, let's play.
Yeah,
and then he's Donald Trump.
He came to play. And look, he told 88 million Americans on live TV last time that he had come to do some rough stuff about Hillary and her treatment of women in her husband's life, and that he decided not to at that moment. But tonight he realized that there's so much to be gained by doing that, that if this woman's going to be president of the United States, you have to put it all out there, and you have to let people realize that she represents the past and the status quo and a rigged, corrupt system.
He kept going back to this. You've been there. By the way, she's been there longer than 30 years. The big themes,
exactly.
Right?
He was being polite. She's been there much more than 30 years and doesn't have much product or deliverable to show for it. He's absolutely right. And I'll put it in my own words. If she's been there all these years, why do millions of American women don't have health insurance? Why are so many of them living in poverty, millions and millions of women? What is the product? She said, I'm fighting for women, I'm fighting for women. And he said at the end, I respect the fact that she's a fighter, and that's true, but she's always been fighting for herself. And I think if you look at her career, it really is always Hillary first, and he's putting America first.
Let me go through the differences, because they all came out tonight. Radical Islam, say it or don't say it. Vet refugees, increase the number of refugees or you don't. The economy, raise taxes, cut taxes. You build a wall, you don't build a wall. You know, on every single issue, he prosecuted the case about Benghazi, about Iraq, about Syria, about Putin, about straight on down the line. This was a substantive debate on top of everything else, and he brought up the issues of her character, the emails, the bleach pit. And by the way, even the treatment of women by the Clintons, which was the big issue supposedly coming into this debate, I would say he put that to rest.
Yes, and whether it's some of the reaction he received this weekend, Sean, or in tonight's debate, he's showing that this contest is us versus them. Who's the them? It's the elites, it's the media, it sometimes is the establishment.
He really is anti-establishment.
Yes, he's conveying that message on behalf of the people. I mean, look, he's built a movement, and people feel like they're a part of that. And they don't want him to throw in the towel. They want to see what they saw tonight, which is somebody who's willing to take the case directly to her and willing to stand up for their principles. I was very proud of him many times tonight, and one of the times you haven't mentioned yet is when he said, you called tens of millions of people deplorable. And then her answer to that was so terrible. She's like, I really meant you are. It's like, no, that's not what you said. In the comfort of yet another Wall Street fat cat donor event. And funny.
Very funny.
And humorous. That's why tonight they're all
By the way,
spinning
that's the person I've known for years.
Yes, they're all spinning about him being in her space while she's, oh, come on. That's the best you have. A 90-minute substantive debate. The best you have is he was standing behind her when she was answering.
Then I'm close to you. I'm in your space right now, but you're in mine too, okay? Kellyanne, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you,
Good
Sean.
night. Thank you.
To you and to our viewers. Reed wrote, if this is going to be a time of healing, we must first put the responsibility for healing where it belongs, at the feet of Donald Trump, a sexual predator who lost the popular vote and fueled his campaign with bigotry and hate. Kellyanne, how do you respond to Senator Reed?
With complete disappointment, I'm really pleased, as are many Americans, that he won't be the Senate Minority Leader much longer. He has resigned his seat, and we'll have a new Senate Minority Leader. By the way, the Senate Majority Leader will be Republican Mitch McConnell, so that's good for the Republic because we can actually get things done. I find Harry Reid's public comments and insults about Donald Trump and other Republicans to be beyond the pale. They're incredibly disappointing. Talk about not wanting my children to listen to somebody. And he should be very careful about characterizing somebody in a legal sense. He thinks he's just being some kind of political pundit there, but I would say be very careful about the way you characterize it. How's that for working together? How's that for accepting the election results?
But are you suggesting, when you say in a legal sense, are you suggesting that Donald Trump might sue Harry Reid?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm calling for responsibility and maturity and decency for somebody who has held one of the highest positions in our government in a country of more than 300 million people. I hope President Obama calls Harry Reid today and says, cut it out. I just met with President-elect Trump. Governor Pence has met with Vice President Biden.
Right.
The First Ladies have met. I mean, everybody is looking for a peaceful transition here in the name of democracy, and you've got the Senate Minority Leader acting like some garden variety political pundit. That's what's got to stop. And you know what? What was the big narrative going into the election, Chris, where most people in the mainstream media were convinced and, in fact, were cheering for, if not aiding and abetting, a Hillary Clinton win? What did they all say? We hope Donald Trump and his supporters will accept the election results. And we have Harry Reid coming out and egging people on. I would put at his feet the fact that a lot of these protesters, I walked right into the firestorm yesterday getting into Trump Tower. A lot of these protesters are not there peacefully, are not there because they just want to express themselves and make a point or make the difference. They're there for nefarious reasons. They're booing us, they're spitting on us, they're causing all kinds of havoc. You know, he has to stop. He has a responsibility. Harry Reid has a platform to do good here, and he ought to rise to the occasion and do that.
Kellyanne, as Ronald Reagan used to say, I think I touched your thermostat there. Thank you. Thanks.
Well, I don't like it. I want the children of America to see decency and honor from our leaders and our elected officials, and they're seeing that in President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Pence, and frankly, they're seeing that in President Obama this week as well, and Vice President Biden. So let's take our cues from them.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. And again, congratulations on a remarkable victory.